My husband had a true love who was already married. After she fed the abortion pill to her husband's concubine, she left a divorce letter and moved into my home. She looked down on me with a sneer. Your husband exists only to love me. You can't compete with me. I obediently poured her tea. I never intended to compete for his affection. What I was fighting for was family honor, power in hand, and the future of my children. Unfortunately, she would never understand. Ding! RoyalStory reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. The Crown Prince gave up on me for a maid. Everyone thought he was crazy, and I felt the same. He knelt outside the palace gates, begging the emperor to annul our engagement. His face was pale, looking up at me, raindrops on his eyelashes. He grasped the handle of my umbrella, pleading, Miss Gu, I truly love man. Can you support us? No. If I supported him, who would support my reputation, my dignity, my family? I shook off his hand and took a step back. The storm I shielded him from fell again upon his pale face. In the biting cold wind, I looked down at him. Song Chinyen, if you are physically flawed, then you cannot be the crown prince. Without that title, no one would force you to marry a Gu family daughter. Likewise, no one would care who your future crown princess might be. If you truly love her, then cut off a finger for her, forsake the path to the throne, and live as a carefree prince with her for life. That would be ideal. He pressed his lips together, silent. I laughed coldly, my gaze sharp and bitter, filled with hatred as I questioned him. Why do you think you can have both the throne and the beauty? Why should I give up what is rightfully mine, the position of the crown princess, just because you ask? I, Gu Xiao, want to marry the crown prince, not you, Song Chinyen. You can choose not to be the crown prince and let your other brothers take on that role. We could be harmonious, yet you can't bear to part with the throne and still want the beauty. Song Chinyen, you're dreaming. He despondently let his hands drop, his once straight spine bending. On the way back to the estate, the maid named Xiao Man blocked my horse. She cheerfully jumped onto my carriage. Don't worry, I'll soon leave here with my future husband. As for Song Chinyen, he's all yours. Haha, but whether you can win his heart is up to you. I doubt you will. After all, the very meaning of Song Chinyen's existence is to love me. She didn't bow to me, not understanding the hierarchy of respect. I felt disappointed in her and in Song Chinyen. Such a frivolous and arrogant woman was not worthy of being my rival, let alone deserving of my respect. Xiao Man's future husband is General Liu. The Liu family's parents and relatives disapproved, but the emperor quickly granted the marriage between Xiao Man and General Liu. To avoid lengthy delays, after the marriage was granted, General Liu received orders to guard Q City. Song Chinyen was lost in confusion for a while. Whether he wanted it or not, I married him as I wished, firmly establishing my position as the crown princess. On the night of our wedding, Song Chinyen drunkenly kicked open my door, shouting at the matron who followed him to leave. He smashed the wine pot, his eyes bloodshot as he grasped my neck, growling, "You drove her away." I easily broke his wrist. He collapsed by the bed, his eyes red and in disbelief. I stood up and removed my hairpins. Your Highness, it wasn't me who drove her away. It was you. You were unwilling to give up the throne, and that's why she left. It was you who wavered and hesitated, and now you want to place the blame on me. That's not honorable. He clutched his wrist, cold sweat dripping from his forehead as he glared at me. I loosened my clothing and walked toward him, and his eyes filled with panic. What are you doing? I promised Eman to remain chaste. I won't touch you. I smiled, pushed aside his clothing, and stepped on it. He gasped in silence. I sighed, toying with him. Your Highness, your love for Miss Eman is not steadfast. His eyes turned red with anger, his fists clenched, and he shouted with a choked voice, Gu Xiao, shut up. The next day, I got up to groom myself in the adjoining room, hearing him hoarsely ask my matron, "Does being a crown princess require learning martial arts?" The matron proudly replied, "Of course." During autumn hunts and spring outings, the crown princess is qualified to attend. After marrying the crown princess, your Highness will have to participate with her. Song Qinyan was gloomy. Fine. 9 years after my marriage to Song Qinyan, Xiao Yiman returned to the capital. By then, I had already given birth to a son and a daughter with Song Qinyan. The crown prince's residence was tidy, without concubines. Xiao Yiman knocked on the front gate of the crown prince's residence at midnight. When the steward reported, Song Qinyan was sweetly sleeping with his head nestled in my neck. He groggily responded, "Who?" The steward, trembling, glanced at me. It's Xiao Yiman." Song Qinyan instantly woke up, barely having time to put on his shoes, hurriedly throwing on a cloak and rushing out. The matron gently patted my hand. "Miss, don't be sad." I was certainly not sad. 2 months ago, I received a letter from my elder brother, informing me that Xiao Yiman was returning to the capital. Shortly after she married Lu Haoyang, she expressed a desire to travel the world. Lu Haoyang was ordered to guard Q City and, without imperial command, dared not leave easily. After a few outbursts from Xiao Yiman, Lu Haoyang never agreed. In a fit of anger, she left without notice, traveling alone. During her journey, she met many people, both men and women, young and old, all calling each other buddies, not shying away from the opposite sex. Sometimes, to save money, many even shared a room. When Lu Haoyang found out, he was furious and sent people to bring her back. To his surprise, she not only showed no signs of remorse but became even bolder, calling soldiers in the army her buddies and getting close to them. By the 6th year of their marriage, Lu Haoyang could no longer tolerate it and took a concubine. No matter how much Xiao Yiman cried and fussed, Lu Haoyang remained unyielding. This time, Xiao Yiman returned to the capital because she had taken advantage of Lu Haoyang's military campaign to force his pregnant concubine to drink an abortion potion, resulting in a tragic outcome for both. Out of fear, she returned to seek refuge with Song Qinyan. The reason her journey was so safe all the way was entirely due to my arrangements. I smiled at my matron. Finally, she has come. My matron looked at me anxiously. "What nonsense are you saying? Now that she's here, the prince will surely become confused again. You and the crown prince have shared such a rare love over the years, and now..." I shook my head, my gaze calm and clear. This month, the empress has already mentioned 3 times that she wants her niece to become a concubine. Over the years, many women have been sent to the crown prince's residence, but Song Qinyan hasn't accepted any. The emperor and the empress are already quite displeased with me, and there are rumors that I'm jealous. He isn't keeping himself pure for me, it's for Xiao Yiman. Rather than have the empress send a noble lady as a concubine to fight me to a standstill, it's better to have Xiao Yiman and her fight it out, allowing me to reap the benefits. Moreover, over the years, Song Qinyan has always had her on his mind. Although he hasn't taken a concubine, the maidservants he brought back to the residence all have similarities with Xiao Yiman. Instead of allowing this thorn to prick my heart, causing me sleepless nights in fear that one day she might return with Song Qinyan's child and take away my child's future position as heir. It's better to let her come back now and stay right under my nose. I want to see if, with his true love in his hands, and spending every day with him, he will still cherish her. My gaze fell on my sleeping children in the partition. No one should think of threatening my children's future. When I tidied up and came out, Xiao Yiman had already collapsed in Song Qinyan's arms. "Lu Haoyang has wronged me, Your Highness, you must seek justice for me." Upon seeing me, Song Qinyan released his hold on Xiao Yiman and indignantly said to me, "This Lu Haoyang is truly despicable." I glanced at him indifferently and turned to smile at Xiao Yiman. "Mrs. Lu, I have already instructed someone to prepare Wenfang Pavilion for you. A maidservant will take you there shortly. It's too late now, you can return to the general's residence tomorrow." Lu Haoyang was stationed in Q City, but his parents lived in the general's residence in the capital. She glared at me in dissatisfaction. "I'm no longer Mrs. Lu. Lu Haoyang and I are divorced." She sobbed as she spoke to Song Qinyan. "Your Highness, I have nowhere to go." I ignored the look Song Qinyan shot my way, smiling brightly. "In that case, stay in the crown prince's residence." After saying this, I turned to leave. Song Qinyan anxiously called out, "Xiao." He then chased after me. Xiao Yiman fell to the ground, crying out his name several times. He paused for a moment but still followed. Song Qinyan ran a few steps ahead before blocking my path. Xiao, why are you ignoring me? He sounded extremely wronged as he came to grasp my hand. I only see her as a sister now. Why are you letting her stay in Wenfang Pavilion? I pushed his hand away. Song Qinyan, you can marry her as a concubine. His expression turned cold, and his voice became icy. Cui Xiao, are you out of your mind? I looked at his bare feet. He was delicate and troublesome, always difficult to take care of. The maidservants attending to him changed several times, and now only the clever ones remained. I stepped away from him, coldly remarking, Song Qinyan, put on some shoes. The next morning, someone from the palace came to summon me to meet the empress. Ever since my father retired last year, the empress had grown distant towards me. In the past, she would subtly hint at wanting her niece to be crown prince's concubine. Later, upon seeing my lack of response, she no longer showed me any kindness. Every time I was summoned to the palace, I either kneeled to transcribe Buddhist scriptures or massaged her legs. In the past, Song Qinyan would accompany me to fend off his mother's annoyances. But today, he merely looked at me coldly without saying a word. I didn't mind, following the palace maid into the palace. The empress asked me, have you thought this through? I respectfully replied, the Liu family's young lady is kind and wise, she is the best choice for the crown prince's concubine. The empress nodded in satisfaction and reminded me. Although there aren't many women around the crown prince, he doesn't just want any woman. You're the crown princess, it's your right to eliminate one or two maidservants. I agreed outwardly but scoffed inwardly. She wanted to use my hand to eliminate Xiao Yiman, clearing the way for her niece Liu Yueru. What a dream! When I came out, I ran into Song Qinyan, who was anxiously rushing over. He grabbed my hand, staring at my face, looking left and right, his hands roaming over me. Did mother punish you again? I shook off his hand and took 2 steps back. No. Gu Ziyao! He shouted my name in anger and embarrassment. I looked at him with indifference. He sighed, the corners of his eyes turning red, defeated. It's because you didn't talk to me this morning. I was supposed to come with you. Before he could finish, a maid beside the empress hurried over upon seeing him. Your Highness is here. The empress has sent someone to fetch your cousin. You two haven't seen each other in a long time, you must have missed her a lot. Song Qinyan frowned, not knowing which word had hit him. Suddenly, he became angry. Cousin? What cousin? What do I care about a cousin? Stop talking nonsense. The maid looked at him with a grin. Look at you, still shy in front of the crown princess. What's there to be embarrassed about? You and Yueru have been close since childhood, not everyone can compare to that. As she excitedly spoke, she glanced at me with disdain. How true it is that when the walls crumble, everyone pushes, even the empress's maid dared to bully me. Song Qinyan was furious. I respect you as my mother's trusted aide, giving you some face. Don't push your luck. The maid raised her voice. Your Highness, what are you afraid of? The crown princess has agreed to make Miss Yueru a secondary consort. You can now approach Miss Yueru boldly. As soon as she finished speaking, Song Qinyan slapped her. I'll beat you to death, you old hag. Nonsense. After scaring the maid away, Song Qinyan, with red eyes and a trembling voice, asked me, did you really take a concubine for me? I nodded, trying to comfort him. Don't worry, I know you like Xiao Yiman. You can stay in Xiao Yiman's Wenfang Pavilion tonight, and once you two have a marital bond, I'll let her be a secondary consort too. Gu Ziyao! He suddenly yelled at me, startling me almost to the point of falling. I patted my chest, frowning at him. What are you doing? Song Qinyan, you're the crown prince, you really are losing control of your emotions more and more. Don't you know you're the future heir? You must not show your feelings. He trembled in anger, glaring at me fiercely. In a fit of rage, Song Qinyan went to the military camp for inspection and didn't return for several days. In the residence, it was just me and Xiao Yiman. The maid, who had been slapped by Song Qinyan, didn't dare be angry with him. Instead, she ran to the empress, embellishing and slandering me. The empress sent someone to deliver books teaching women to be gracious and virtuous, ordering me to copy them 100 times before I could leave the residence. While I was confined, Lu Yueru, at the empress's behest, brought carefully prepared pastries to the military camp to see Song Chenyan. The matron was extremely worried. These two are not easy to deal with. That one over there is still a noble lady, dressed to entice men, trying to ingratiate herself. And this one at home is no better, constantly probing about the crown prince's whereabouts. I focused on copying the books, picking up the pastries on the table and eating them contentedly. The matron smacked my hand in frustration. "Miss, what time is it? Why aren't you anxious at all?" I looked at her with a sense of grievance. "But I can't rush it." "Then you need to think of a way to firmly hold the crown prince's heart, rather than just sitting back and watching others steal your husband's affection." I smiled coldly. A man's heart is too fickle, it can't be grasped. But the crown prince clearly only has you in his heart right now. Why push him away? Is that so? I'm not so sure. Outside, I heard Xiao Man fall into the water. I stretched lazily and looked at the matron. The show is about to begin. When Song Chenyan returned, I was instructing someone to prepare medicine for Xiao Man. It was already late autumn, and the pond water was cold. Once Xiao Man fell in, she got hurt and wouldn't recover in less than half a month. Song Chenyan initially just wanted to suppress his anger and say a few words to me. But upon seeing Xiao Man's pale little face, pitifully fainted under the quilt, he couldn't hold it in anymore. "Is it really that you can't stand her? I was only gone for a few days, and you couldn't wait to lay hands on her. You forced her to leave the capital back then, that's why she married the wrong person. Now she has come to me for help, didn't I tell you? I only see her as a sister. Gu Ziyao, why don't you believe me? You pretended to be generous about making her my secondary consort, but now you want her life. You have a heart of a snake and scorpion, and you're not sincere." I should have known. He looked at me with disappointment, quietly sitting by Xiao Man's bedside, holding her hand with heartache and pressing it against his face. The matron was dumbfounded. But I had already anticipated this. He had always been haunted by the matter of Xiao Man leaving the capital back then. If he didn't address it, he would never feel at ease. I turned to leave, but the matron grabbed me, indignantly saying, "Your Highness can ask the maid who was with Miss Xiao how she fell in." When Miss Xiao fell into the water, the crown princess was busy copying the books the empress requested. How could she have time to harm your precious? Song Chenyan's face showed some embarrassment. The entire inner court of the crown prince's residence is under your control, they naturally listen to the crown princess. The matron was furious, nearly falling backward. Xiao Man slowly woke up in the evening. She blinked her eyes at Song Chenyan. "Your Highness, is that you?" Song Chenyan said worriedly. "It's me." Xiao Man immediately threw herself into his arms and cried softly. "I thought I would never see you again, Your Highness. I regret it. I shouldn't have left. But if I had stayed, you would surely have been punished by the emperor." Song Chenyan patted her back and comforted her. All right. The doctor said your health is very poor and you need to take care of yourself. You can't be overly sad or happy." Xiao Man nodded, her eyes filled with tenderness. Song Chenyan asked, "How did you fall in the first place?" Xiao Man's gaze flickered, the moss by the riverbank was slippery. "I accidentally fell." Song Chenyan instructed Xiao Man to rest well and then interrogated the maids who had accompanied her. It was Xiao Man who wanted to stroll by the river, no one had tempted her to go. Meanwhile, I had been in the study copying books for several days. Song Chenyan was not satisfied with this answer. He even resorted to torture on the maids accompanying Xiao Man. The maid was on the verge of collapse, pleading for him to spare her. I couldn't bear to watch and stopped him. "Song Chenyan, what do you want to prove? In your heart, I am just this kind of person, right?" I had red eyes. "Since you think I am this kind of person, why do you need to interrogate them?" "I am this kind of person." I held back my tears and turned to leave, but Song Chenyan grabbed my hand. "Ziyao, I was just in a moment of desperation. It's fine, you should go take care of Miss Xiao, I said dejectedly, turning to leave. After returning to my room, I found it somewhat amusing to see my matron sulking. What are you so angry about? He has always been this kind of person. It's not like he just became this way today. The matron retorted angrily. He clearly pretended to want only you, and even got angry when you agreed to the Empress's suggestion of him taking a concubine. I chuckled. I have been married to him for 9 years. Although he refrained from taking a concubine because he still thought of Xiao Yiman and was concerned about my father, he gained quite a reputation because of it. Everyone says he is loyal to me, treating me deeply, while he receives all the praise, and I am called a jealous woman. Now, he wants to take a concubine or even 2. He still has to pretend it's something he has no choice in, as if it was forced upon him to protect his reputation. Seeing the matron stunned again, I laughed until my stomach hurt. You don't understand him, but I grew up with him, attending lessons together, so I know him better than anyone. I collapsed onto the couch, feeling a bit dazed. I couldn't help but recall my younger self. I am the legitimate daughter of the Duke of the State. The very next day after I was born, an imperial decree arrived in the palace, sealing my engagement to the crown prince, Song Chenyan. I was not raised according to Song Chenyan's preferences. But rather every word and action, every frown and smile, every move was taught according to the standards of a future empress. My father said, "Your future husband is not Song Chenyan but the crown prince. It is that position, not the person sitting in that position." I understood my father's teachings well, prioritizing family and interests above all. I once thought Song Chenyan was the same. When I was learning the etiquette of a crown princess, he was separated from me by a screen, studying the ways of the air. We would each walk our own paths, next to a 4-panel screen. We were friends, partners, allies. Perhaps soon, we would become lovers. Until he strayed from the path for Xiao Yiman. How proud I was then. I was born to be a crown princess, with a prestigious family background, and I had sailed smoothly for many years. I never thought that I, the most noble girl in the capital, would one day have to clear the future husband's courtyard while still being an unmarried girl. I admit, I was very curious about this maid named Xiao Yiman. I wanted to know what kind of woman could make Song Chenyan, the usually dignified and steady crown prince, throw away the burdens he bore, defy the emperor's orders, offend powerful officials, and still want to marry her as a crown princess. To be fair, I couldn't do that. Even the best man in the world couldn't make me abandon my family and give up my current honor. But when I saw Xiao Yiman, I was disappointed. Along with that, I was utterly disappointed in Song Chenyan as well. The person I regarded as an ally and rival turned out to be just this. My brother received my letter and came to fetch me the next day. Just in time, the Empress's maid arrived to collect the books I had copied 100 times. Naturally, I hadn't finished them. Not even a single word was written. My brother questioned the maid rudely. What did my sister do wrong to have to copy this, let alone 100 times? For these years in the crown prince's residence, she has devoted herself to taking care of him. Even when my father was injured on the battlefield, he didn't dare to tell her, fearing it would distract her. Can't you Song family see what she has done for the crown prince? The maid replied sarcastically. Whoever marries the crown prince has to do these things. Why does General Gu have to be so aggressive? My brother grabbed her hand and sneered. Come on, you and I will go to the imperial study. I want to find the emperor to discuss this. What has my Gu family daughter done to offend your Song family, or has my Gu family done wrong to your Song family? Let the emperor issue a decree for divorce, and I'll take my sister away. The maid panicked, hurriedly trying to pull her hand away while smiling apologetically. General Gu, please don't be angry. This old servant is just following orders, following orders. Humph. My brother shook off her hand. Go back and tell your master that my father is ill and that his daughter should show filial piety by his bedside. After saying that, he took me away. The children knew that after I returned to the Duke of the State's residence, they would come back to rest there after class every day. The entire Crown Prince's residence was left with only Song Chenyan and Xiao Yiman. I wasn't in a hurry. The one who was anxious now was the Empress. Lu Yueru had been bringing Song Qinyan sweets to the military camp for several days, but she still couldn't secure her position. Now, seeing the crown prince and a woman of low birth who had been married before getting along so well, shouldn't she feel anxious? Song Qinyan had visited the Duke of the State's residence a few times, wanting to take me back. But upon seeing that her father was indeed ill, he left again. Once he was gone, my father happily picked up his beloved granddaughter. He was as lively as could be. The day after I returned to the Duke of the State's residence, Xiao Yiman climbed onto the bed I used to sleep on. Song Qinyan pretended to be confused and called my name a few times. "Xiao, is that you?" Xiao Yiman shyly replied, "Yes, Your Highness." The two of them were lost in each other, unaware of the world around them. During the days Song Qinyan was at the military camp, it was just me and Xiao Yiman at the residence. She came to find me every day, either provoking or looking down on me. But no matter what she did, she couldn't anger me. She scoffed at me with disdain. "Your husband's existence is solely to love me. You can't compete with me." I poured her tea and replied, "I never thought of competing with you for his affection. What I was fighting for was family honor, power in hand, and the future of my children." Unfortunately, she would never understand. She proudly told me that the world I lived in was created specifically for her by the Creator. She was the female lead of the story, while Lu Haoyang was the male lead, and as for Song Qinyan, he was the devoted second male lead. Curiously, I asked her, "What about me?" Although it might be said that one shouldn't speak of strange forces, I had seen many extraordinary things in my daily life. She coldly snorted, looking down on me. You are the wicked female supporting character who deserves a terrible death." I was speechless. If Lu Haoyang was indeed the male lead of this world, shouldn't he always be revolving around her? How could he take in another concubine and even now hunting her down with all his might? Did she not know that if it weren't for me, she would have long been dead at Lu Haoyang's sword? Lu Yueru, unwilling to back down, also went to the crown prince's residence to see Song Qinyan. Not long after arriving, she carried herself like a highborn lady, humiliating Xiao Yiman. "You, a lowly woman who doesn't abide by the rules of marriage, dare to compete with me for the position of concubine?" Xiao Yiman shot back coldly, "You think you're noble? You've been sending Song Qinyan sweets for so long, yet he doesn't even pay you any mind." Seeing Lu Yueru's ugly expression, she deliberately exposed the marks on her neck. This thoroughly infuriated Lu Yueru, and the two began to fight, both showing signs of injury. When Song Qinyan returned, he found the residence in chaos. Xiao Yiman, disheveled and tearful, threw herself into his arms, begging him for justice. Lu Yueru was also crying, dragging her torn dress and pleading for him to take charge. Before Song Qinyan could speak, the Empress came to Lu Yueru's aid. Not only did she elevate Lu Yueru to the position of consort, but she also punished Xiao Yiman with 20 lashes. Upon learning of this, I couldn't help but find it strange. It seemed that the female lead wasn't all that great after all. Song Qinyan had no choice but to come find me. It was truly ridiculous. He didn't want to offend the Lu family and lose their support, he thought he could make me the scapegoat. But in the end, I still went to ask for Xiao Yiman's position as the crown prince's concubine. The cost was that the Empress was furious and nearly hit me in the head with a cup. Song Qinyan held me, feeling guilty. "Xiao, I'm sorry, it's all my fault." Naturally, it was all his fault, a fickle man who didn't abide by the rules of marriage. Yet I still gracefully responded sincerely. "This is what I should do, Song Qinyan. We are husband and wife, allies on the same boat. I will always prioritize your interests. I will never betray you, for betraying you is betraying myself." He was taken aback as I got into the carriage back to the Duke of the State's residence, allowing his gaze to follow me. A gentle haven, a place of indulgence, every man's lifelong enjoyment. But when two such havens are squeezed together, it may not be enjoyable at all. Song Qinyan indeed lived a fairy tale life for a while. Xiao Yiman sought his favor, and Lu Yueru worked even harder to please him. But after just a couple of days, he became the county magistrate at the Yamen, busy with cases all day long. Xiao Yiman was poisoned, supposedly by Lu Yueru. Lu Yueru fell into the river, said to have been pushed by Xiao Yiman. After half a month of such chaos, Song Chinyen could no longer endure it and ran to the Duke of the State's residence. When he arrived, my brother was teaching my son to practice swordplay, and my daughter was learning to write with her aunt. I was sitting in the corridor, embroidering a winter cloak for Song Chinyen. Our family was together, enjoying a harmonious time. Song Chinyen stood there dazed. I smiled and waved at him. "You're just in time. This is a sable my brother just hunted. I've made you a cloak, come try it on." My brother snorted. "Just one? Give it back to him. You think of him, but he doesn't think of you." Song Chinyen's face turned pale as he replied, somewhat ashamed but lacking confidence. "No, that's not true. Xiao is my principal wife. I treat her sincerely." I shot my brother a glare, and he finally fell silent. I believed that what Song Chinyen said was true. We had been married for 9 years, spending every day together. Except for a few bickering moments in the first month of our marriage, we had grown more familiar and affectionate over time. The ice in our relationship broke during the second month after our wedding, which was the spring hunt, where I, as the crown princess, had to accompany him. Though he was the crown prince, the sixth prince was ambitious and kept trying to seize the throne, secretly setting traps for him. After several contests, Song Chinyen had lost. Frustrated, he rode away, disappearing into the lush mountains and forests in no time. By evening, there was still no sign of him. I had no choice but to go look for him. I originally didn't want to go. The night is cold in the mountains, and the matron and maid are roasting the game we hunted in the morning inside the tent. The raw meat sizzles over the fire, sprinkled with pepper and salt, making a delightful sound. Yet now, I have to put down the delicious food and go look for Song Chinyen, who is always a source of trouble. He fell into a hunter's cave and injured his foot in a trap. I used all my strength to help him up, cursing under my breath while trying to comfort him. "It's okay, don't be afraid, I'll take you out." But as soon as we stepped out, we ran into an assassination attempt. What terrible luck! I felt like shouting every curse word I knew. In the end, I still blocked an arrow for him. Song Chinyen looked beautiful when he cried. I quite liked watching him cry. So delicate. If I were the crown prince, with his looks, I would definitely make him my personal maid. He was deeply moved that I blocked the arrow for him. During that time, he stayed by my side constantly, no longer arguing with me, and complied with everything I said. I didn't expect him to be so easy to please and to have such a good temper. In fact, he didn't need to be so touched. I blocked the arrow for him simply because we are on the same side. He is my husband and my support, we rise and fall together. He is the crown prince, and I am the crown princess. If he were to be demoted to a commoner, I would also become a commoner. If he died, it would bring me no benefit, only harm. For the next 9 years, I supported him through hardships, working together until we forced the sixth prince into his fief, solidifying his position as the crown prince. I never worried about my position as crown princess. Although Song Chinyen was not loyal to me, his heart was soft. He knew the sacrifices I made for him over the years and had never been stingy in rewarding my family. But I needed to pave the way for my child. The year Song Chinyen ascended the throne, the harem was bustling, and with my father retiring, there was no one to protect my son's position as crown prince. The Liu family, as the maternal relatives, with Liu Yiweru in her prime, would be my strongest opponent in the future. Xiao Yiman also occupied a large part of his heart. He called out Xiao Yiman's name several times in his dreams, keeping me awake all night. Either of these two giving birth to a prince would pose a significant threat to my child. I couldn't allow these two threats to accompany me to the palace. I had to resolve them at the crown prince's residence. In pursuit of peace and quiet, Song Chinyen began frequenting the Duke of the State's residence. Xiao Yiman cried and caused a scene several times, even threatening to take her own life, yet he remained unmoved. In a fit of anger, Xiao Yiman burned down the crown prince's residence. Although the fire was extinguished, his collection in the study was reduced to ashes. Inside was a rare pill he had spent 3 years preparing as a gift for his father. He was almost driven to despair. Xiao Yiman, regardless of the situation, cried and questioned him. "Am I not worth as much as these decorations? Why are you avoiding me? Shut up! Song Qinyan nearly spat blood. Xiao Yiman was stunned for a second before starting to shout. Song Qinyan, do you not love me anymore? How could you treat me like this? She cried heartbreakingly, her voice turning pitiful, glancing at Song Qinyan. Song Qinyan left without any reaction. Xiao Yiman's face completely changed. Song Qinyan, looking disheveled, came to find me, his pristine robe stained by the burnt wood, marked in several places. I helped him change his clothes and poured him some tea. Don't worry, my father gave me his treasured sword that he has worn for many years to give to you as a birthday gift for the emperor. Compared to the pill, the emperor would probably prefer this. This sword represents the loyalty of the Gu family and their total submission of power. Song Qinyan tightened his grip on the cup. He lowered his gaze and said with difficulty, Xiao, thank you. You always help me when I'm at my lowest. But I haven't been able to give you anything in return. I smiled. We are husband and wife, there's no need to say such things. He murmured to himself. I don't know why, but now that she is so close, I don't want her anymore. I pretended not to hear. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it to arrive so soon. Now, the old love was completely unrecognizable, a far cry from the image I had cherished for 9 years. The beauty had collapsed, impossible to rebuild. He was naturally disappointed. And also bewildered. I had a hand in this, of course. Xiao Yiman came to the crown prince's residence alone and, to prevent me from placing spies, she only chose maids that the steward brought for her. But she didn't know that even the steward was on my side. Now, the maids attending to her were all top-notch, eloquent and charming, easily making her furious. In reality, they spent all day sowing discord between her and Lu Yueru, fanning the flames to make her confront Song Qinyan. Lu Yueru was suddenly taken into the palace by the empress to attend her illness. My biggest fear had come true. Lu Yueru was pregnant. Now the empress personally cared for her, and the entire Lu family was focused on this pregnancy. Since the child was not yet 3 months along, it wasn't announced to the public. The empress said it was due to her own health issues that Lu Yueru came to serve her. On the Lantern Festival, as per tradition, the crown prince and crown princess went to attend the family banquet in the palace. Xiao Yiman begged to go, but was ruthlessly scolded by Song Qinyan. In a place like this, I can't bring you. What would that do to the crown princess's reputation? You really don't understand the situation at all. I'll punish you to copy books 100 times. I must say, you people from the Song family really love making others copy books. When I arrived with Song Qinyan, Lu Yueru was sitting in the position meant for the crown princess. She smiled apologetically at me, but her gaze was provocative. I'm pregnant and can't move easily. The crown princess is always generous and will understand, right? I didn't mind, but she underestimated Song Qinyan. Though he was a bit of a flirt, he cared deeply about appearances and the hierarchy of etiquette. Get up. Lu Yueru looked at Song Qinyan in disbelief. Song Qinyan said impatiently, do you really think you can sit there just because you're carrying a golden baby? Is it the first time someone in the Eastern Palace has been pregnant? This is a family banquet granted by father, and all officials of the 3rd rank and above must be present. Don't be ridiculous. Lu Yueru reluctantly stood up. Although Song Qinyan was scolding her, she glared at me. What good would that do? Halfway through the banquet, Song Qinyan suddenly collapsed. I suppressed my panic and shouted, there's poison in the wine. Chaos erupted around us, and I cried as I held Song Qinyan. Quick, summon the imperial doctor. The doctor said Song Qinyan didn't have much time left. The crown prince's residence fell into desolation, no longer the vibrant place it once was. The Lu family brought in a fortune teller to predict the gender of Lu Yueru's unborn child. The fortune teller not only said it was a boy but also that this child would surely rise to greatness in the future. The empress was overjoyed, but if she knew the fortune teller's grandmother was from the Gu family, she might not be so happy. Although she mourned for Song Qinyan, he was already a useless pawn. Lu Yueru's child was her future support. The empress took even more care of Lu Yueru, to the point that she hadn't visited the crown prince's residence since Song Qinyan was poisoned. But how could I let her have her way? The doctor checked Xiao Yiman's pulse and told her she would never be able to conceive again. Xiao Yiman's maid found a pillow soaked in musk. After thorough questioning, the evidence pointed directly to Lu Yiweru. It's often said that if one doesn't court disaster, disaster won't come. Lu Yiweru summoned Xiao Yiman to the palace frequently, using the empress's name to teach her palace etiquette, while secretly tormenting her. Xiao Yiman, unable to resist, grew to hate her more and more. Before each visit, everything she wore was soaked in musk. If Lu Yiweru hadn't tormented her, she wouldn't have to see her every day. But Lu Yiweru insisted on making things difficult. What began as a minor cold turned into a miscarriage for Lu Yiweru. The doctor said there was musk in her body, but couldn't find the source. Meanwhile, enduring the ups and downs of life and sickness, only I remained steadfast by Song Qinyan's bedside. And Song Qinyan may be cured. The young doctor from the Imperial Hospital searched through ancient texts and told us. The only way for His Highness to survive is for him to exchange blood with someone close to him. The Emperor, of course, could not be an option. My son and daughter cried as they knelt before Song Qinyan. "Father, I'm willing. Father, I'm willing too." A chorus of sobs filled the room, and Song Qinyan shed tears before suddenly breaking into a smile. The young doctor's words were half true and half false. Of course, I had urged him to deceive Song Qinyan. But I truly did give my son a small cut. I comforted him, "This isn't a wound. It's a symbol of your power, a bright future ahead." The deeper this scar, the more Song Qinyan would remember this day. No pain, no gain. When Song Qinyan recovered, the Lu family sent Lu Yiweru over. She appeared pale and called out to Song Qinyan, "Cousin." Song Qinyan responded coldly. From then on, she and Xiao Yiman posed no threat. On the day Song Qinyan ascended the throne, he named my son Crown Prince and my daughter Princess. Yet Lu Yiweru's status remained uncertain. The palace where the Empress Dowager resided was in disrepair, and the Lu family's officials were continuously demoted. Lu Yiweru died of illness. How much of this was revenge from Song Qinyan remains unknown. On the day she died, I went to see her. She asked me unwillingly why someone of her noble birth ended up like this. I didn't respond. I turned and left. Why? Because she shouldn't have tried to harm my son multiple times just to become the crown prince's consort, wanting to clear obstacles for her child that hadn't even been born yet. She shouldn't have provoked a mother. Her death was not regrettable. With Lu Yiweru gone, Xiao Yiman lost her value. My brother no longer pressured Lu Haoyang, allowing him to report to the capital. Xiao Yiman was ultimately imprisoned. In the 3rd year, she went mad. She mumbled all day that she was the female lead, that she was destined by fate. It was somewhat laughable. What is fate? One's own life is, of course, determined by oneself.